So, chapter 2 is about chemistry. And I know that people in the class, some people are going to be pretty intimidated by chemistry, but we need to know certain things about chemistry to learn about anatomy and physiology. Okay, so if you're freaked out about it, please don't. We're trying to make it as basic as possible. We're not trying to be chemists here. If this is easy for you and it's a review, just look at it as a review and sit back and enjoy. So, chapter 2 is about chemistry, and we're talking about the first level of organization, basically. All right, so we're going to be talking about atoms. And atoms are the building blocks of all matter. And they're tiny, 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 tiny little things. Okay? They are made up of subatomic particles. Okay? So if we're looking at this little thing here, this is our basic structure of an atom. And the first subatomic particle we're going to talk about is the proton. So proton, so these guys here that are in red. Okay? So protons are charged. They have a positive charge to them. They're located in the middle here. So they're located in the nucleus of this atom. And the proton is the structure that defines the characteristics of the atom. So on the periodic table, which you've probably seen before, a big old table that has all the elements listed on there, and they start at 1, okay? That 1 it has a special name called the atomic number. And that atomic number is the number of protons. So if hydrogen is number 1, it has 1 proton. That's what makes it hydrogen. Okay, it only has that 1 proton. 2 is helium, so it has 2 protons. 3 is lithium, that's 3 protons, that's lithium. And again, that defines the characteristics of that atom. Okay. So, looking at this thing here in the darker color, we have something called neutrons. So these are also located in the nucleus. And these guys don't have a charge, so they are neutral. And usually they are numbered in the same amount as there are protons. But that's not always the case. They can be different. Okay? Neutrons contribute to the stability of an atom. And when they're equal to protons, that's the most stable condition. If there are a different number of neutrons than protons, that makes the atom less stable. And these atoms are called isotopes. So protons are always the same. There's never different. If we have lithium here, because there's 3 protons here, if we add a proton, it's not lithium anymore. It's something else. It's number 4. Okay? Neutrons, we can add more. We can take some away. It's still lithium. It's still that same atom. It's just a different structure of that same atom. Okay, a different component of it, and it's called an isotope. So, for example, carbon is number 6 on the periodic table. So it has atomic number 6. And so it has 6 protons and 6 neutrons. In its most stable state, it has this, and that's called carbon 12. It is the most stable. Okay? But there is something that we have that has 6 protons, so it's a carbon, and 8 neutrons. That's called carbon 14, and it is unstable. Carbon 14 will decay into carbon 12 because that's where it wants to be. It wants to be stable. Okay? And we can use this unstable carbon that wants to decay into carbon 12, and we can use that because when it decays, it's what we call radioactive, and it will emit light. So we use these types of things. We use things like carbon 14 in medical imaging. So if I can give a patient a certain drink that has carbon 14 in it, it will reduce or decay to carbon 12, and it will emit light so that we can see structures in the body. Okay. So the last, excuse me, the last thing we see on here are the electrons. So put this over here. And electrons are tiny, 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 tiny. Most of the weight, when we talk about the atomic weight of an atom, comes from the protons and the neutrons. The nucleus is what weighs a bunch. The electrons don't weigh hardly anything. And these are the electrons here. Electrons are negatively charged, and they sort of fly around the nucleus. In an atom, the number of electrons is the same as the number of protons. So if there's 3 protons, there'll be 3 electrons floating around it. Okay? But it's the electrons that dictate or provide an atom's ability to react with another atom. So in an atom, if there's the same number of protons as electrons, there's no charge there, because if you have 3 positive charges and 3 negative charges, then they cancel each other out. But sometimes the electrons can be different. So if there's 2 electrons and 3 protons, that will give a positive charge because there's more protons than there are electrons. If we have 4 electrons and 3 protons, then we have a negative charge. So these things, when an atom is charged, that means it has become something that we call an ion. Okay, we have ions in our bodies. Okay, so an ion is either a positively charged atom or a negatively charged atom. If it is positively charged, it's called a cation. So CAT, that looks like a positive, so cation. A negatively charged ion is called an anion. Okay, so the next video we're going to talk about this and talk about how these atoms react with one another.